Okay, it looks like we are live. It is Tuesday, January 22nd, 2019. I'm just going to quickly share this onto my pages. And if you'd like to do the same, please feel free to do so. And then we'll get started in just a moment. And while we're doing this, go ahead and say hello. And what are you having for dinner tonight? Say hello. And what are you having for dinner tonight? Or if you're somewhere internationally, what are you having for breakfast? And then we'll be getting this started here in just a moment. I have to share this very quickly with just a few of my pages. And then we'll be ready to rock and roll. Should be about 38 and a half seconds. So say hello and what you are going to have. We'll make it something fun. What you're going to have for dinner, or if it's late at night for you, or early in the morning, what you're going to have for breakfast. And I just got one more quick share to do, and then we'll be ready to do this. Cool. Let's see who's on here. Why is this not showing me my little comment things? Uh-oh. It's showing up in there. Okay, we'll just give them. Oh, there we go. Cool. Hey, Violet. Good to see you on here. Cindy. Hey, Cindy. Paul. What's up, Paul? Hey, Violet. Lasagna. Larry. What's up, Larry? Hope. Hey, Hope. How are you doing? Long time. Linda. Boy, I feel like it's been forever. Okay, good to see everybody on here. So really quickly, while we give everybody a couple moments to log in, a few updates. Number one, I mentioned yesterday that I'm doing one of those online summits that is a completely free one. So if you are someone, let me tell you the name of it. If you're someone who wants to learn how to extinguish physical and mental burnout by reigniting your purpose, this might be a really cool one for you. It is completely free. I'm on a panel of maybe 15 or so other people that are doing it. You can use that link to sign up. You'll get access to my interview as well as everyone else's. And then I think they're going to start airing the interviews sometime next week. But be sure to sign up. And then once you do, there'll probably be some emails that they'll send you afterwards. You're going to be added to their email list. You can stay on it if you want, but it's going to be really great stuff. So if you enjoy these, if you listened to any of them before, I would love for you to participate in that. I have lots of updates on here. Change of time. Thursday, I'm going to need to adjust our time. It was originally scheduled for, I think, 4 o'clock. I'm going to move it up to noon Pacific time. Noon Pacific time on Thursday. I'm just going to put that on here. Time change to 12 p.m. Pacific time Thursday live. And then I will also send an email. So those are, not live, love, matter. What the hell? Thursday live. So those of you who are on the email list, I will email you an updated time for Thursday as well. And if you're not on the email list for the Facebook Lives, you can use that link I just posted in to do that. God, we're going to put a ton of links in here. There is one space left for a strategy session with me for this week. One spot for a strategy session if you're someone who's really serious about doing coaching, wants to use it to level up in life and really build to an epic 2019 together. You can use that link to grab that last strategy session for this week. Let me make sure I got all my notes here. Time Thursday did that. Oh, it looked like the vote was pretty unanimous. And so effective next week, we're going to change our Friday Facebook Live to a Q&A. So I want you to think about this. I would love your feedback on it, about how we could do that, about what would be the best way. If it's me putting a post up and you submitting questions, if it's just me saying, hey, okay, put your questions for the Friday Q&A in the lives, and then you can leave them like that. Any suggestions you have, put them in the comments. I would love to hear from you. I would love to build that, but I think it'd be really fun to do the Friday Q&A. So we'll start that effectively next week. And the last update for today, TED. Official word from TED is my TED Talk should be up and available for everybody by the end of this week, beginning of next week, some point. I actually got to see it yesterday. I got to see the raw file of it, and it was pretty surreal. Getting to watch it play out and whatnot. And I have, the disclaimer is I usually watch those types of things with a fairly critical eye for myself, because it's not that I'm trying to criticize myself as much as it is I really want to always be growing, always be improving. I want to do my absolute best I can to help and serve each of you. And so I look for those things as a way for feedback. And, there's a couple little things that I don't think anybody else will notice, but I noticed, and that were in my control, but the other stuff was outside of my control. And I think it's a really meaningful talk that I sincerely believe with all my heart that it can make a really profound difference in people's lives and help them get through some maybe challenging times that they've been through. So my ask for it is same as yesterday's. If you know someone who would be impacted by it, who it could help, please pass it on to them. Don't share it just because I'm asking. Share it because it's meaningful to you and you really believe in it and you believe it'll help. But I will let you all know. And then also we were talking about yesterday doing some sort of TED watch party, rolling it out. So if you're interested in that, put it in the comments and we'll talk about that. Okay, we did an extremely long amount of updates yesterday, so I don't want to go into too many today. I want to really focus on today's topic. I encourage you to take notes. Feel free to ask questions and whatnot. I encourage you to ask questions throughout, and then if we don't get them, I will circle back around at the end. Also, you can sign up for the summit at any time, and I'll put that link up again, but be sure to register for that, and that's going to be the Light Your Fire link up top. So for everybody just logging in, I want to make sure we focus on that. I might even interview you for that. We'll be going out the next couple of weeks. Be sure to, I got notes. If you have friends, families who you want to participate in this, you can tag them in this, share this with them, comment throughout, emojis throughout, all those types of things. It just helps Facebook bring more attention to it. Also, if somebody's contributing, somebody's asking questions, somebody makes a comment that you really agree with, or they might think something similar to you, give them a like, give them some feedback, let them know that you appreciate them, putting themselves out there, because it can be a little scary asking questions, but it's where we all really grow. So that's it for updates. Let's dive into today, which is no BS. This is exactly why you need to get unstuck right now. This is going to be part 2 in our weekly focus on getting unstuck, which incidentally, those of you who were on the live yesterday, was it helpful? And do you have any questions about that? Oh shit, you know what we forgot to do yesterday at the live? Is we forgot to put our goals for the week down. So we start Mondays and we do a goal of the week. So be sure to put a goal of the weekend. We're going to get this more streamlined as the year goes on. I know I'm jumping around, so I'm going to refocus on no BS is exactly why you need to get unstuck right now. So I wanted to introduce this with a story. And this is a personal story, but it's also one that I think might be everybody's story. And what I would encourage you to do is, as you listen to this story, listen to not so much my version of the story, but just listen to it as it may apply to your own life or it may apply to someone else, because this is a true story about being stuck. And it's a true story about the cost of staying stuck. Next week, it will be, which I can't even believe, it'll be 9 years since my dad passed away. 9 years on February 1st. And it just, to say 9 years since my dad was here, it just doesn't even seem possible. It's been 9 years since I picked up the phone and heard his voice. It's been 9 years since it's been longer than that since I hugged him, because I didn't go home and see him that Christmas. So it's been even longer than that since I actually hugged him or saw him in person or any of those types of things. And my dad, like many people, maybe some of you, maybe some of your parents, was a classic example of putting things off until later on. My dad was always working to pay the bills, never could get caught up, was always kind of behind, felt like he couldn't get ahead or win at life, and he would have these goals, these dreams, these aspirations, things he'd want more, but he didn't really know how to do it or what to do to go about getting it. Remember, we talked about yesterday is the number one thing that keeps us stuck and prevents us from moving forward is going to be our limiting beliefs. And my dad, I didn't recognize it at the time, but now doing what I do and looking at it outside of it, I can see my dad much of his life was ruled by limiting beliefs. My dad would so much wanted to go and explore and see the world, but his limiting beliefs would often keep him in bed on a Sunday watching football or watching NASCAR, because he didn't believe that he was capable of experiencing the world outside to the fullest of which he wanted. A few years before my dad died, he was diagnosed with colon cancer. And the reason he was diagnosed with it, if any of you are familiar with the disease, I didn't realize this, but there's no real physical symptomology of it. It's not one that you necessarily feel pain or you have any sort of adverse side effects right away. And the reason my dad's was discovered is because the tumor inside of him had gotten to be so big that it was actually pushing on his intestine. So he went into the doctor for horrible stomach pain. They couldn't figure out what was going on, ran a few tests, and then luckily they found it, told him that his tumor was, I don't remember if it's 5 inches or 5 centimeters, whatever really big is and how they measure those things, and he had to run in for emergency surgery. Any of you who have ever been in that position before for yourself or loved ones know that all of a sudden life flashes like this and you put things in context and perspective really quick. In those moments, you're not thinking about what somebody said to you or the person who cut you off. You're not thinking about necessarily the bills you have to pay or how you're late on rent or what so-and-so thought of you or said of you or what the person at work said last week that really upset you and pissed you off. What you're thinking of is life. What you're thinking of is the life that you still have left to live, the things that you want to do that you haven't done. You're thinking of the people who matter most to you. You're thinking of friends and family. You're thinking of all those times that you probably didn't say I love you. You're thinking of all those times you withheld forgiveness. All those times you may have voluntarily swum around in pain because it felt good in some weird way. Not good to be in pain, but good to hold on to the certainty of pain. And so my dad did that. He had this all of a sudden this life flashing moment. And I remember before my dad went into surgery, having this kind of surreal thing when I hung up the phone with him, thinking, gosh, that could be the last time I talk to him. And what if the surgery doesn't go well? My dad went through surgery and he came out okay. And he went to, a couple weeks later, he went to the follow-up to visit the doctor. And doctor sat him down and said, Mike, the surgery went really well, and I'm 60% confident we got it all, and the cancer will never come back. But he said there's a 40% chance it could. And my dad said, well, gosh, 40% chance. What does that mean? And the doctor said, here's the deal, Mike. I'm pretty confident we got it. I'm not certain, but I'm pretty confident. I'd say 60% chance we got everything. He said there's somebody in the room next door who got the 60%, opted to not have chemo, because he said that if you did chemo and radiation, then it'd bump your odds up to like 80, 85%, something like that. So they opted not to do it. And because of that, the cancer came back. It came back more aggressively. It spread, and they were going to die. So again, my dad's thinking, I just went through this cancer scare. He thinks they got it, but he's probably thinking about life. My dad was young, and he had an opportunity to have a lot of life ahead of him. He wanted to do more things, explore more things, see more of the world, but he had been stuck in his ways for so long that he never did it. But the thing with death, is sometimes when we live in this black and white world of where we have the proverbial gun to our head, it makes it much easier. See, a lot of times where we get stuck, it's in the gray area. It's in the what ifs, it's in the what could happen, it's in the fear, it's in the imaginations of these worst case scenarios. It's in our inability to have a vision for ourselves or to believe anything greater for ourselves than we're already experiencing. So my dad opted to do the radiation and the chemo. He started doing that. He was sick. He was nauseous for much of the time. Any of you who have ever been through it or have had loved ones have gone through it, you know that the process is not necessarily the easiest. I can remember calling my dad at some point, and he was so nauseous that he couldn't even be on the phone with me. It was just making it worse, making him feel like he had to throw up, and I could hear it in his voice. He just felt, you could hear in his voice he felt so sick. I asked my mom if I should come visit. And my mom told me probably not, that my dad didn't really want anybody to see him because of the radiation side effects. His eyes were kind of bulging out. His face was sunken in. He just felt so sick. He didn't really want anybody to see him in that kind of state. My dad goes through the whole radiation, the whole chemo thing, and he goes in for his annual checkup. And the doctor looks him in the eye, shakes his head, and says, "Congratulations, Mike. You're cancer-free. You have your whole life in front of you." My dad called me up to wish me a happy birthday 9 years ago on my birthday. And he was telling me, he said, "I have something really cool I want to share with you." And I said, "What's that, Dad?" And my dad and I didn't have a relationship where we'd call or talk a lot. And I really regret that, because there's so much more I wish I could have talked to my dad about. And he called me up and he said, the doctor, I went in for my annual checkup. The doctor looked me in the eye, shook my hand, said, "Congratulations, Mike, you're cancer free. You have your whole life in front of you." And I go, "Dad, that's so awesome. What do you want to do?" And he said, "I want to make some big changes. I want things to be different. I want to make sure I use my time to the best of my ability." 2 weeks after that conversation, my dad was dead. After being promised more time, after believing that he had more time, after doing everything he thought he needed to do to earn more time, he dropped dead. A few weeks after his death, my mom sent me this backpack of his, brand new backpack, one of those big traveling backpacks that he had bought. And inside the backpack, there was a list. And this list was the supplies and a map that my dad had got and made to go on the ultimate camping trip. A camping trip he had always wanted to do. A camping trip that he never made a priority. He never went after because he was so stuck in life and the way it had been. A camping trip that he never went on. See, my dad, after having that brush with death and going through that, he started taking many actions. See, sometimes, again, when we have the proverbial gun to our head and we see things as black and white, all the bullshit that we allow to hold ourselves back, all the stories we tell ourselves, all the things we buy in from other people, they just don't seem like that big of a deal. When you're literally looking at the fragility of your life and saying, "Gosh, I could not be here tomorrow," do we really, really care? Do we really care about the one person, what they said to us, or how they may have snickered at us behind the scenes? Probably not. But yet so often we allow those things to dictate the control of our life. We talked about yesterday about limiting beliefs and our belief system and how they're not even this tangible thing. We can't physically feel them or touch them like this, but they're these things, these imaginations in our mind that we allow to drive so much in control and dictate so much of the quality of our lives, to the point that it robs us of our life and limits us. There's so much beauty in my dad's story, but it's also beautiful tragic, because my dad never got to go on that trip. The thing that was on his heart, one of the things that he wanted to do more than anything else, he never got to experience it because he was so stuck. Now, there's part 2 of this, right? The second part of this is my story, and I've shared some of this with you before. My dad died on February 1st. On February 2nd, I went up to his office to clean it out. And, I'd been crying all night. I was going through all my what ifs, what I could have done, if onlys. I should have this. I should have talked to him more. I should have all these things. I should have said I loved you more. I should have come home at Christmas. There's this emotional swirl. Those of you who have lost loved ones before know that there's often this emotional tornado that hits right after loss. And the tornado is swirling around with emotions like grief and guilt and sadness and anger and depression and all those types of things. I'm feeling and I'm very present to the wishes that I had. How much I wish I would have spoken to him more. How much I wish I would have communicated with him more. How much I wish I wouldn't have held on to these petty things that I held on to. How much I wish I hadn't been angry at him for my perceived ineptitude of him. See, we all look at our parents as these superhuman people that are just supposed to have it all figured out. And we don't realize that our parents are trying to figure stuff out of this as they go along, just the same as we all are. We don't give them the grace as little children that they're doing the best they can with what they have, because we don't even know what the hell that concept is. And most of us can't even grasp it as big kids or adults. Here I am in my dad's office getting ready to clean out his computer, and I was clicking around on his desktop, and There was hardly anything on it. My desktops are routinely covered with files and photos and all these types of things, and his had maybe 3 files on it. And it was really peculiar because one of them caught my eye, and for whatever reason, I double clicked. Several years before this, my mom had always told me the story of, as I was a kid, that how it was she and she alone who would be the one that would make the effort to make Christmases and birthdays special by writing cards and wrapping presents and all those types of things. And there's a lot of truth to that. My dad wasn't raised to value those things. And so if he wasn't raised that way, it just wasn't his default. But my mom, it was really important to her. I internalized that to believe that my dad just didn't give a shit and didn't care enough to try to do those things for me. I got really stuck in that. I get really stuck in that belief system. Remember what we talked about yesterday? The number one thing that keeps us stuck is our BS, our belief systems, limiting beliefs. And my belief system, my BS, I told myself about my dad is that he just didn't care to do those things. See, I learned to associate, to use that as a way to quantify love. I would say my mom loves me so much because look at all the effort she's putting in to putting these things together. And because my mom's doing so much and my dad's doing so little, it must mean my mom loves me so much more than my dad. We come up with some pretty strange scales, don't we, when we're trying to quantify love and quantify the things that people in our lives do or don't do. Well, on one particular birthday, my dad actually took the time to send me a card, and this was back in the days when it was really cool to print up cards. You remember when we did that before we just went all digital? We would make the cards on the computers, and we'd print them up, and then we'd sign them, and we'd put our graphics on there and everything, and then we'd send them out. Because it's way better. It was not only was it fun, but it was a way better deal than going down paying $9 for whatever it is for a greeting card at the store now. And now most of the time we just do it digitally. And my dad had printed one of these cards up. He had made it, printed up. He took the time to make it himself. He enclosed some money inside of it, and then he signed it, "Love you, Dad." I remember when I opened that card, I saw the money, I saw his signature, and I felt this just surge of anger move through me. I remember actually vocalizing this and just saying, like, how dare you? You had your whole life, you had 18 years where I lived under the same roof as you, that you could have done these kinds of things, where you could have shown love, you could have done these kinds of things. You never did. So I tore up the card, threw it away, but not before I took the money out and put it in my pocket. Now, there's a little bit more to the story because every single card I've ever received, birthday card with all my stuff about birthdays, which I talked about last week, and any sort of card I've ever been given by anyone, I've saved because they're meaningful. They're these little gestures like that where people try to show or express love for me. So I literally have this bin that's probably 3 feet long of just nothing but cards that people have given me. The only one I ever threw away was this card from my dad. I didn't think about the card. I wasn't really thinking about it when I sat down on his computer, nor was I thinking about it when I began to click around. There's maybe 3 or 4 file folders on his desktop. I click on one. There's a file on there that catches my eye. I double click, I open it. And what pops up on the screen? But the birthday card my dad had made for me. The same one that I had torn up and thrown away several years before. The same one that I tore up and threw away several years before. I didn't allow myself to see the love, to see the kindness, to see the gesture, to see my dad caring and his caring and love towards me, because I was so stuck in how I had chosen to learn to see my dad. And I was so stuck in how I saw the world. So when I say no BS, this is exactly why you need to get stuck right now. I don't say this just as a coach or any of those types of things. I say this as somebody who's lived this. I have very few regrets in my life, but I fully regret the missed opportunities I had to connect with my dad. I do. There were so many things I missed out on with my dad because I was so committed to seeing him through the lens that I had learned, been taught, and chosen to see him through. I was so stuck in my ways that I completely missed out on having a relationship with my father. My dad had been so stuck in what he had learned, how he'd chosen to see the world, that he missed out on doing some of the things that mattered most to him, the things that he really wanted to do. And then he finally gets a second shot at life after going through all that. He sits down, he takes immediate action, he buys the backpack, he gets out the piece of paper. Keep in mind, my dad is coming off of however long of chemo and radiation and all these types of things. So he's still fairly weak. He doesn't have a lot of energy. He's huffing and puffing, going up and down stairs, doing basic things. But he's got the backpack, he's writing down the list, he's making it happen, he's putting it to place, and he's resolving that no longer is he going to settle for the excuses that kept him stuck before. He's going to go and make this damn trip happen. Life doesn't always work that way. One of the things that breaks my heart more than anything is every year in January, I will get people that will reach out to me and talk about all the changes they want to make. And then when it comes time to start actually doing coaching, the things that will pop up for them, I can't afford it. I can't find the time. I can't make the commitment. I don't know if it'll work, blah, 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 blah. And then a year goes by, 2 years goes by, however much time goes by, and they reach back around. And they're in the same space they were before. They're still stuck, but the difference is just time has passed them by. Years of life have passed. See, our life can change in moments like that. We can, at any given moment, we can make this transformation from just where we are to wherever it is we want to be like that. And we'll have steps and work and effort that we have to put into it along the way to keep making progress and get to our ultimate destinations. But so many of us stay stuck in where we are because we have these beliefs, this BS, these belief systems about why we can't, about why it won't work for us, about how we can't afford it, about how we don't have the time, we don't have the effort that we, it goes on and on and on. I don't need to say them because any of you who have ever been stuck before know that you tell yourselves the same story time and time again. It's how we stay stuck. I would tell myself the story time and time again about my dad. I'm sure my dad would tell himself the story time and time again. I don't know for sure because I never asked him because I was so stuck in my story. One of my greatest joys in life now is to help people get unstuck. I think I shared it with you all the other day. It's probably one of the top 2 things that I'll have people reach out to me for. Because I know firsthand, and I've lived it, about the cost of staying stuck. It's so easy for us to get into a place where we just settle. And we accept things as they are. We throw up our arms and say, maybe this is as good as it gets. Maybe this is all I deserve. Maybe this is all that there is. We shut off the voice in here, the voice that tells us that there's something more, that we deserve more, that we desire more, that we're capable of more. And we tune into these fear voices in here, these voices of limitation, these voices of lack. Life doesn't have to be that way. Take it from me. Take it from my dad. It really doesn't have to be that way. So I hope that, and I'm going to open this up for questions in just a moment. So if you have questions, go ahead and start typing in your questions. I hope that if you're someone who finds yourself in a place right now where you're stuck, you'll listen to your heart and take that first step today to getting unstuck. Maybe for some of you, that might be to, go and apply for the job you've always wanted to. Maybe it's for some of you, it's to log off of here and to reach out to your spouse, your significant other, and just tell them how much you love them and how you're sorry for the last however many years, and that you're really committed to working together to make the rest of your life the best of your life. Maybe for some of you, that's to email me. It's to fill out that strategy session because you've listened to me long enough and you've followed me for long enough that you can trust me enough to help you, guide you during this juncture of your journey to get you unstuck. Maybe for some of you, that's something completely different. And what's important now is, what I don't want these to be is I don't want these to just be feel-good talks or anything like that where you think, you feel, we put some emojis on there, and then we walk away and say, wow, that was really good. That was helpful. It gives me something to think about. I don't want you to think about these things. I want you to do something about it. Because thoughts just sit there and they flow around, and whether they say, what's the expression goes, there's no place where there's more wasted potential than the graveyard. Because the graveyard is full of people who had lots of thoughts, lots of ideas, but they never took action on it. Any of you who have ever been to a cemetery before, a historical cemetery? I remember going to Arlington in Virginia when I was there. And, there's this big long line to go see JFK's tomb, to go and see the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. And then there's all these other names that people didn't know unless they were family members. And I thought, God, that's so sad, because here are people taking action towards something. They're fighting and dying for something they believed in. And maybe that's not the best example. Let's use another one. Let's use the one of, I was in Sleepy Hollow in New York, and there's a couple famous people buried there. And there's a lot of other people that nobody knew who they were. So many of those people, probably people didn't know who they were. The reason we knew who those people were who were there is because they were the ones who took action on the thoughts. They're the ones that took action on the ideas. They didn't know necessarily how to bring it to life, but they were committed to working through it. They were committing to make it happen. See, we don't necessarily know how we're going to make things turn out, but what we do know is this, is that if we're stuck, we need to get unstuck ASAP. We need to take action. We need to do the thing, and we need to honor this voice in here, tune off this voice in here, because life's going to pass by. It's January 22nd already. How many of you can remember it seemed like it wasn't that long ago we were saying, I can't believe it's almost Christmas time. And now it's going to be February next week, February. We're already going to be a month into 2019. That means we're already going to be 30 days less of the year, which means we're already going to be 320 days, down to only 320 days left in the 2000 teens. It's going to be 2020 before we know it. If you've been stuck for more than an hour, it is time to get unstuck. And please, 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 if you were to make 2019 be any sort of symbolic year for you, make it your year of getting unstuck. Because on the other side of that is where your greatest life exists. So I hope this has been helpful for you all. I appreciate each and every one of you listening. I would love to answer any questions you have. So whatever questions you have, go ahead and start typing those in. And while I do that, I'm just going to quickly reshare that link to the summit. If you want to jump into the Light Your Fire Summit, here is, where to do that? Here is that link. If you want to grab that strategy session, you can use this link. And if for some reason you try to get the strategy session time and the schedule's full because somebody else grabbed it, just email me, and then we will coordinate a time to get you on the schedule and make it work for you. A couple quick reminders why we do that. So I just put the summit strategy session. Remember Q&A, remember, and keep typing your questions, comments, and I'm going to circle back around and answer those real quick. We're going to change the time we meet on Thursday to noon Pacific time. It's just going to work a little bit better with my schedule. So noon Pacific time on Thursday. I will email you that. So if you're on the email list, be sure you're signed up for that. So that way you get any sort of schedule changes like this. I will add that link here. And TED Talk. Stay tuned if you want to do a TED watch party, something like that. I post it in here. If you want to make sure you see the TED Talk, just say, send me the TED Talk, and I will message you on Facebook when it comes out, which it should be by the end of this week, beginning of next week. Q&A Friday, we had enough votes. It looks like we'll change Fridays to Q&A. So if you have ideas about how we could do the Q&As, what's going to be most effective, whether it's me putting a post up once a week, whether it's asking questions and say, submit your questions for the Q&A. At the end of these, we could do that. So, but this Friday we'll go as planned, and then next Friday we'll switch over to that. All right, so that's it for that. What questions do you have? I'm going to just circle back around here real quick and see. Vanessa, we think we have so much more time when we grow up. Yeah, so true. I got one last gift from my dad. He told his friend, I know I don't have to worry about Violet. She can take care of herself. His friend passed this message on. So awesome. Paul, I need to do more with my dad. Yes, Paul, please do. Please do it on behalf of myself and all of us who no longer have that opportunity to do the things with our dads that we'd like to do. Renee, my dad is my best friend. He's having health issues right now, and I have to tell him I love him all the time. Make those I love yous count. Some parents aren't easy to communicate with. Don't worry, just being around or a 3-minute call is enough. Yeah, absolutely. One of the challenges with our parents too, I'm so grateful you brought up that point, Vanessa, is I think all of us, if we're really honest, I know for me, if I am, we all have these idealized versions about how we'd like to see our parents, how we would like them to be. Maybe we want them to be the Brady Bunch version, not the Cosby version anymore, but the Brady Bunch version, and they're not. And so part of, I think, our role as children is to love our parents for who they are, not as we wish they would be, but who they are. Find that space to just love them for who they are. Recognize that they're a flawed human being just like you and I are. Recognize that they have gone through trials and tribulations themselves. Recognize that they have their own BS belief systems that has led them to behaving, doing, and acting in the way that they are. They may not have had a community like we all have here that we could talk about these things, that we could work through it together. And so part of that is just learning to, love them for who they are. And then when you do communicate with them, if it's just a short call, 3 minutes, communicate them from the place of love. That's awesome you're doing that. Taking the intuitive classes with Jeff Richards. How do I stop feeling guilty about not seeing my mom enough? She has Alzheimer's, nonverbal, can't feed herself, etc. I know in my heart she wouldn't want people to see her this way, yet she's my mom. Signed, guilty and sad. Well, that's a very creative way to sign that card. We should do some sort of Dear Abby type thing. Violet, I can appreciate that. I went through much of that emotion with my grandma, Nana, who passed away in November from Alzheimer's. And one of the things I struggled with the last few years, because she had a horribly long bout with the illness, and she was literally a vegetable for the last 5-6 years, couldn't talk. I mean, it was awful. And I knew that she wouldn't want any of us to see her that way. I knew she wouldn't want to be alive in that way. That was literally probably, if you could describe somebody's worst hell, biggest fear come true, is probably hers. She was the one that would chase us around as kids with a Lysol bottle, and such a germaphobe, and to be reduced to where she was, it just, and not even be able to speak, talk, drooling on herself, the whole thing. So I struggled with that because I didn't want to, every time I'd go, it was getting harder and harder to remember her as I knew she would want me to remember her by. What I suggest for all of you in those kinds of dynamics is to spend a few moments really connecting with the person that you know they are, not who the disease has turned them into, and focus on those memories, celebrate those memories, immerse yourself in those memories. Let them be alive inside of you. I can still to this day hear my dad's voice in phone calls. I can still to this day, I can still hear his voice. I can't remember certain things, and I'm grateful I wrote down some of the things that he did, because it keeps him alive inside of me, and then it makes me more attuned to his presence when it's around me. So, connect with that. Connect with who she is. Connect with who she wants you to remember as. And connect with, too, I think one of the most important things, and this is what the TED Talk's going to dive into too, is make your life about honoring your mom. Make your life about honoring your mom. And that way, when you're in her presence, we're all going to have those emotions when we have to be in those positions, but you can make your life about honoring her. And in that way, everything you do, you're doing it in the name of the best of who she is, the best of who she was, and the best of her that you're going to take with you. Does that make sense? Yeah, Jen, I agree. You're right. It's not easy to move forward. It's flat out hard, frustrating, and a lot of work, but it's worth it. 100% agree, Jen. High five. Glad my sister told me to tune into you. You are very genuine, honest. I want this fear. Oh, cool. Juanita, who's your sister? Hope, how do you get over the fear of trying something new? So, Hope, can you give me a specific of what kind of fear it is? And then if it's something that it looks like it's going to be a little bit more time than we have today, I might shelve that for our Q&A when we start the Q&A. But if you can give me specific, what's the new thing? I forgot to ask you about several things after our session. My youngest daughter asked me to come help with my grandson this weekend, but I don't have a good relationship with her or husband or my son-in-law's parents. They're ones I told you about early in coaching, the ones that have it all. I don't want to go watch my grandson because I don't have a close relationship with him or his parents. What should I do? Do you want to? That's a great question. So what Linda's asking is, she's in a dynamic right with her family where she's being asked to help, but she feels like she doesn't really have a closeness. And without the closeness, there probably doesn't feel like this obligation or desire to help. So one of the things I would ask myself, Linda, is say, do you want to have a closer relationship? And if the answer is yes, then can you make it a point to find the what that you want to focus on? Is it love? Is it companionship? Is it bonding? And then show up from that place. It's crucial. One of my closest friends in my life today is someone who I used to look at in a very negative light because I stereotyped him as being one way and just saw him as that. And whenever I'd hear him talk or open his mouth, I always just saw him as that. And then once I actually got to know him, I got out of my own way and started to see him from a better light that I shined on him, because before I shined this really dark light on him. And in the really dark light, I'm only going to see the shadows. But once I made the light really bright and I got to illuminate and just see what a cool and kind person he is, we became fast friends. What limited me was not his behavior. What limited me was my interpretation of his behavior. So it doesn't mean that necessarily we're gonna get along with everybody, we're gonna like everybody. But what it does mean is it means we can find a space to like, a space to love, a space to help facilitate getting our needs met and strengthening our bonds with people, if that's important. Will you be doing any live sessions on shame in the future? Very possibly, Carrie. Yeah, if people request that, definitely. I have the content pretty mapped out for the next couple months, but I'm totally open to shame if somebody would be of interest in that. Yeah, we'll spend some more time about my grandma later on. Maybe we'll talk more about those types of things, disease impact on families. That might be a good topic too. We'll talk about the Breckenridge thing. Linda, a really cool thing, if you don't mind me sharing, Linda, is Linda and a couple people who are in this group I'm in, it's really neat. They all met and became friends through the group, and they're renting a place in Breckenridge, Colorado in June. And so we're talking about maybe making it a retreat type place where we can have people come who want to come, and then I'll lead some sort of workshop over there too. So I think if you're interested in anything like that, talk with Brenda and we'll start putting a group together with something like that. I have time for one more question and then I have to jump. Wow, there's a lot of comments that popped up here. This is awesome. That's awesome. You allowed yourself to cry, Sasha. It's so important. I love that, Paul. I need to do this. I don't have another year of being stuck. Yeah, it's time to take action. It's time to make some changes. I love that. Yeah, if you're somebody who's stuck, I mean, really, like, just declaration like Paul just did is so powerful, because if we don't declare it, we just keep it inside, we hold on to it, right? It's our declarations. How many of you, out of curiosity, who set a goal last Monday, shared it in the live chat? How many of you, because you shared that goal, because you declared it, followed through on it and made that goal happen, accomplished that goal last week? And you probably wouldn't have done it if you hadn't declared it. I'll be the first to put my hand up, because I absolutely, it was the case for me. See, it's something really powerful when we declare it, because now when we declare it, there's other people who can follow up with us, other people who can support us, other people who can help facilitate and make it happen for us. And it's imperative that we do those types of things. We keep the most important stuff buried inside of us, and it's ridiculous. This is about your life. It's about making your life extraordinary, awesome, excellent. And one of the first and most important steps in that is just to declare it, to declare that that's what you want. Oh my God. So Violet just wrote, I remember the night my mom, me, and my boyfriend at the time were at the table playing cards, and he thought he was rubbing my feet with his, but he was rubbing my mom's feet. Oh God, that's awesome. Renata. Oh, no way. Is Renata from Canada? Juanita, that's your sister? And Luca, Todd, the whole family? That's awesome. The fear is trying something new career-wise, but being afraid that I won't find something that will give my family what we need financially, plus what I need to be happy at a job. Yeah, so we're Hope. Why don't you hold that, because that's going to be belief systems, and we're gonna touch on belief systems tomorrow. We're going to start exploring that a little bit and how we can get unstuck. So why don't you save that question for tomorrow, and then we can ask it if that's okay with you, and then we can ask it in context with what I'm going to go over tomorrow. Maggie, I just typed my stuckness to you, but deleted it when I heard other questions. I appreciate so much you sharing that. Incidentally, how many of you have felt just how Maggie felt, where you were getting ready to declare something, you're getting ready to open up, you're getting ready to ask a comment, you're getting ready to share, and then all of a sudden you stopped because there was a voice that said, somebody else is saying it. Maybe my question's not as good. Maybe my question sounds silly. Maybe it's ridiculous for me to say this. Maybe somebody else is going to do it, whatever it is, right? Honestly, how many of you have done that before? Maggie, I cannot tell you how many times I've been in things before and I had something I wanted to ask, something I wanted to say, and I held it back in because of these stories, whatever it is that went inside of me. And so I appreciate so much you sharing that, because I think you just articulated what many people go through. And what you articulated, Maggie, is one of the biggest reasons why we stay stuck. We don't get the help, we don't get the support, we don't take the actions we need to take, is because there's a belief behind that behavior that drives the behavior. So I think that's a really great way to end on. All right. You all are awesome. Thank you so much. I hope you found value in this. If you did, please be sure to share it, tag a friend in it who could benefit from this. That way it's easy for it to do it. Message them, whatever you need to do to get it in front of them. Register for the summit that I'm going to be speaking on. It's completely free. You'll get access to my talk as well as everybody else. That link's in there. If you want one of the one strategy sessions left, use that link to grab that. And then if you can't get it because the calendar's full, you can email me and we'll get you coordinated. Remember, this is for people who are really serious about coaching, who want to utilize it as a cornerstone for the rest of to make their 2019 absolutely epic. It'd be an honor to be able to work with you. Be sure to sign up for the email reminder for the Facebook Lives. I am going to change Thursday's time to 12 p.m. Pacific time. So just write that down, make a note of it, and stay up to date with that with the reminders. TED, look for TED. If you have ideas about you want to do the TED party, whatever it is, put that on here. I really is going to mean a lot for you all to help me get that out. My goal is to get that message to 1 million people before the end of the year. And I really believe with all of your help, support, and love that we can make that happen. I will be back here tomorrow, and I think tomorrow's time is a little earlier, if I'm not mistaken. I think we're meeting an hour earlier. I'll have to double check that. But again, if we have the reminders, we all know that. And I think that's it. So thank you, everybody, for being here. I appreciate your comments, your questions, your support, your interaction, the emojis, all those types of things. Huge thanks to those of you who have contributed, who were willing to ask questions, who are willing to contribute, because I can just tell from some of you that I think you all got a lot out of that. It's so awesome that you're courageous enough to open up, to share, to speak what's on your heart and mind. I thank you for that. I honor you for that. I appreciate each and every one of you. And so remember, wherever you are, whether it's morning, noon, or night, carpe diem, seize the day, seize the moment. You only are guaranteed this one moment, so make the absolute most of it. Sending lots of love to all of you, and I hope to speak with each and every one of you very soon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.